There has not been a generation since the start of human history that needed to learn and embrace the art of solitude like the one we're living in right now. With the onset of the digital and technological revolution, we are occupied all the time, whether that's with our smartphones, laptops, whatever the device may be. It really robs us from the ability to disconnect from this world, which really allows us to truly connect with God in many ways. So in this video, we are going to take a new look at what solitude is and really explore it in the context of this modern Western society we live in. So let's kick things off with the scripture here. I was looking through the Bible when it came to the context of solitude, and a Greek word that really stood out was eremos. And I want to give the verse first, and then we'll explore what this term means. All right, so let's start out with Matthew chapter 14, verse 13. Now, when Jesus heard about John, he withdrew from there in a boat to a secluded place by himself. The word secluded in that verse is actually the Greek word eremos. So let's take a look at what that definition is. Eremos is a word from the New Testament that is a close representation of our current understanding of solitude. Properly, it is an uncultivated, unpopulated place, a desolate, deserted area. Figuratively, it is a barren, solitary place that provides needed quiet and freedom from disturbance. All right, so using that Bible passage that we started out with and then combining this concept of solitude, or the way they used it in this verse, secluded, with the Greek word being eremos, let's come up with sort of a working definition of what solitude is. I see solitude as detaching oneself from human connection, both physical and digital, for the purpose of increasing conscious connection with God and oneself. In so many ways, we have lost conscious connection with God and also conscious connection with who we are at the core of ourselves. Whether it's social media, TV, Netflix, any form of entertainment that really takes up a ton of our time and mental capacity, whatever it is, I have found that we are living in a generation that desperately needs to be able to disconnect from these things, these devices, these entertainment sources, in order to really get to know who we are and who God is. Now that we've laid out sort of our working definition of solitude, I wanted to get back to contextualizing solitude to this day and age. I think it's important to do this because it's really easy for us to think about solitude as almost unachievable. We can look back to people in Bible times and say, oh, it was so easy for them to find solitude. They didn't have all of these different things that were vying for their attention. And in many ways, you're right. It was far easier in many different areas for people back in biblical times, before the technological, before the digital revolution, to really get alone and be with God. But I think you'd be surprised to also know that there are some ways that we have it a little bit easier than people back in those days did. The truth of the matter is we have far more leisure and downtime, and it's just how we choose to actually spend that time is the real issue. Rather than needing to have to work all the time like most people back in the biblical era did, we have opportunities to really embrace rest and leisure and opportunities for solitude. Our homes are far more conducive for solitude. To be able to go into one of our bedrooms and lock the door and be alone is actually a luxury that a lot of the world currently doesn't have. But back in the biblical era, that would have been far more uncommon. Just as the technology that I talked about that really has robbed us from a lot of opportunities for solitude, actually, it can be used in reverse for a benefit for solitude. What do I mean by that? Think about it. If you wanted solitude, you could hop in your vehicle and go drive to a secluded place. This is, once again, something that was very uncommon for people in previous eras. It took a lot of effort to get out of town. It took a lot of effort to go find a place that was quieter sometimes. But for us, we have the ability to do that truly whenever we want. Still, in saying all of this, if I had to really break it down and look at previous generations versus ours, I do still think it's probably more challenging for us to experience solitude. Here's a few things that we really have to work through. Unfortunately, we live in a culture that really idolizes a fast pace of life. And if you're like me, anytime you ask somebody, how are you? Oftentimes you'll get the phrase, oh, I'm so busy. It's almost like a badge of honor that we wear, that we're busy, that we're important, that we have things to do. Another challenge we face is just the commercialization commercialization of society. I mean, I can't think of a generation in which we are trying to be sold more things than the one we're currently living in. Whether you're driving down the freeway with the billboards or whether you're just trying to watch a movie, whatever it is, there's always advertisements and different companies trying to vie for your attention to buy their product. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the smartphone, the thing that is basically tethered to our bodies. I'm pretty sure in future times, we're going to find a way to like connect this to our body in some way. But this device alone, I think, is probably the number one robber of our ability to achieve solitude and really consciously connect with the Lord. Now, I hope what I've said so far doesn't dishearten you. I wanted to acknowledge the challenges that we really do face in this day and age when it comes to experiencing solitude. But the fact of the matter is that we have great hope to really grow in this area as well. This is what I'd like to leave you with. I want to leave you with a challenge. It is a challenge to actually be intentional. I believe that the only way that solitude can be achieved in the world that we live in today is if we intentionally pursue it. So I'm not sure what that looks like for you. Maybe it is getting out your calendar and picking out an afternoon that you're going to spend completely device-free, going out for a hike in nature. Maybe it's choosing to set the alarm a little bit earlier so that you can have time in the morning before the hustle and bustle of life really gets started so that you can go and get alone. Whatever it is, I just want to promise you that solitude is rarely going to just come upon you. There's too many things going on in this digital and connected world that we live in that unless we are intentional to create the space for solitude, it'll be far from us. So there you have it, a fresh definition of solitude for this day and age. Some of the ways that we do have it easier, but a lot of the ways that we have it harder as well. Once again, I want to leave with a message of hope that it is possible. It is important for your soul to experience and be nourished with that. So go, be intentional, carve out that time, get alone with God, connect with yourself, connect with Him.